Good evening, everyone. I am Judy Reese Morse, President and CEO of the Urban League of Louisiana. Welcome to our first candidate forum of this election cycle. We are so glad that you have made time in your schedule, post-Ida, and still in the pandemic, to hear from the candidates for Orleans Parish Sheriff and New Orleans City Council District A that you will see on the ballot on November 13th. We're hosting forums like this one to give you the opportunity to hear directly from those who are seeking your vote. We want you to hear firsthand about the vision that each candidate has for our community so that you are able to make an informed decision when you cast your ballot. The Urban League of Louisiana is deeply committed to voter education, voter engagement, and voter mobilization. Our Wake Up, Go Vote initiative is a statewide effort that allows us to work with you to engage and to take action that will lead to stronger, thriving, prosperous communities. We believe that your vote is your voice, and we want the voices of our communities to be heard loud and clear. The first step is getting to know who your choices are for elective office. The Urban League also has a long history of fighting for voting rights for African Americans. Nationally, the fight continues to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. And while passage in the House of Representatives represents progress, there is still much work to be done in the US Senate. We ask you to also add your voice to the work of the National Urban League as they continue to advocate for passage of this important civil rights legislation. Here in Louisiana, work is being done every day to promote voter engagement and to protect against voter suppression of any kind. We've been proud to stand with the Power Coalition for Equity and Justice in support of voter fairness and equity. We are also proud to partner with the Power Coalition on hosting this evening's forum. You will hear from Ashley Shelton, the dynamic founder, president, and CEO of the Power Coalition for Equity and Justice later this evening. She'll share a few words of welcome and appreciation to you. But now we are ready to get started with our event. I'd like to introduce you to our moderator for this evening, Ms. Sheba Turk. Sheba is a news anchor for WWL TV. She is also the author of the book, Off Air, My Journey to the Anchor Desk, and she has served as the host of her own entertainment show, The 504. She keeps her thousands of followers and fans on social media informed and up to date on the issues that matter most. She is a respected journalist locally and nationally, and we are so thrilled to have her with us this evening. Welcome, Sheba.
Thanks, Judy. It's so good to be here. This is such an important forum, and I'm happy to be a part of it. As you said, it is so important that we give voters a chance to hear from the candidates who they will see on their ballot in November and hear their vision for the offices that they would like to hold. So the Urban League of Louisiana and the Power Coalition for Equity and Justice are hosting this forum, and they will have others so that you can get to know those candidates. So tonight you'll be hearing, as Ms. Judy said, from the candidates for Orleans Parish Sheriff and the candidates for City Council District A. We'll do this night in two parts. So in the first hour, we will be hearing from the candidates for Orleans Parish Sheriff. And the questions for each group have been provided by the Urban League and the Power Coalition to focus on issues that both groups regularly encounter for the communities they serve and advocate on behalf of. So tonight we'll be tackling issues such as racial equity, criminal justice reform, equitable workforce and economic opportunity, and much more. And all the candidates were invited to participate in tonight's forum. They have all received these questions in advance. So now we are going to jump right into it and introduce the candidates for sheriff. So I'm going to ask you guys to put your video up so that folks can see you. I'm going to ask you all to start with an opening statement. And I'm going to ask you all to respect the time limits that we set for tonight so that everyone has an equal opportunity to speak. I'm going to ask you all to introduce yourselves. So we're going in alphabetical order, and you will have 1 minute for your introduction. So let's start with Quentin R. Brown Jr.
My video's not up.
Okay, there should be a stop video button, Quentin. If you can just click on that, it should pop up. Right on the left-hand side, bottom of your screen.
Start video?
Yes.
Okay, got you.
There you go.
Okay, there we go. Okay.
All right, we can see you. You can start your minute and we'll give you a 15-second warning. So please try to wrap it up then.
Okay, let me see this real fast. I'm Quentin Brown. I'm the independent candidate in the race. I know most of you are going to go and vote and see Democrat or other, but I want to be the best. I'm the one that wants to change. I'm the no BS man. I'm tired of the bull crap that's going on in city government and inside the jail. I've ran for mayor. I ran for city council. I ran for city council district B. I ran for governor and I've ran for sheriff. I got 3% last time I ran, but I was running against 3 top names. Now I hopefully to get second. I want your vote because Martin Luther King always said that if a man hasn't discovered something that he would die for, he isn't fit to live. I have discovered this sheriff race. I'm ready to serve you as sheriff. I'm ready to protect your family when they enter that jail and protect your family when you're out of jail. I want to protect the citizen, not just the inmates. I want to be the sheriff that comes behind the desk and on the streets and show you that I myself and my deputies can try to stop this crime. All this trash collecting, all this other stuff that we talk about, infrastructure and everything, the main reason is crime. We want to be safe in New Orleans again, and we want all parties. Don't just say a sheriff that's not the sheriff's job to do it. It is everyone's job to do it. If you're an elected official, I don't care if it's an assessor, it's your job to do it. It's your job to protect New Orleans, Louisiana. And as sheriff, I will do that. I don't need to say any more.
Quentin, thank you very much. Let's move on to Marlon Guzman.
Good evening, Sheba, and good evening to everyone. Thanks to the Urban League and to the Power Coalition for hosting this forum. I was born in New Orleans. I was raised by parents who instilled in us a strong work ethic and the value of education. I went away to school and returned back. I'm an attorney. I have 2 children who live here, 5 grandchildren who live here, and I have 1 on the way. I ran on a platform of a smaller, safer, more secure jail, and I delivered on that pledge. Don't judge me where I started, but rather how far we have come. We are the 8th largest jail located in the heart of our city, 7,500 beds, and I tore down or abandoned every single last one of those facilities. I replaced them with a modern direct supervision jail with over 900 cameras. We've doubled the pay of deputies, increased training, implemented body-worn cameras, barcoded armbands, and other technologies. I've instituted a day reporting center and reentry programs with family nights to reduce recidivism. I hire transitional workers at the sheriff's office, and I encourage private employers to do the same. We have a high school, an accredited high school, the Travis Hill School. I've partnered with Goodwill, the Metropolitan Human Services District, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, UNO, the Girl Scouts, and many others to improve and provide opportunities for those in our custodies so that they can become better when they leave here than when they came. I believe that everyone makes mistakes and that we must help them become better.
All right, that is going to be a minute. Thank you so much. Let's get to Janet Hayes. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me. My name is Janet Hayes. Many of you know me as a fighter for people. We need to reduce jail capacity by working on both sides of the criminal justice system to get people into appropriate treatments, programs, and services, not just throw them in jail. New Orleans also needs intentional and streamlined transition from jail back to community through reentry, and we need accountability. We can't leave people the same as when they entered the jail. All this does is increase their chances of reoffending. We can't keep blaming Bobby Jindal for closing down our psychiatric hospitals. He's been out of office for 8 years now, and still our jails are warehouses for the mentally ill. We need to rebuild. Untreated serious mental illness is driving incarceration. We need a criminal justice system that streamlines and coordinates therapeutic psychiatric treatment and care for people living with the most serious mental illnesses. That's my expertise. Those are my priorities that I'll bring into office, as well as advocating for reform for all the jail population in order to reduce crime and increase safety. Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you so much for being with us. I'd like to introduce now Susan Hudson.
Okay, I think I'm on. Good evening. Thank you again. Thank you, Urban League. Thank you, Power Coalition. Thank you, Sheba, for hosting. My name is Susan Hudson. I'm number 6 on the ballot, and I'm running for Orleans Parish Sheriff. And I'm running on a platform of change, which includes the 3 C's of corrections, which are care, custody, and control. And I've had the pleasure of serving as your independent police monitor for 11 years, providing accountability when the NOPD caused harm and delivering justice for our community. I'm running for sheriff because for far too long, Marlon Guzman has not shown the responsibility and leadership needed to run a safe jail. It was actually the community working with the city council that brought down the number of beds, which was way too large for a city of our size, and something that the sheriff insisted on until he was brought kicking and screaming into the century. Our sheriff's deputies and employees must be valued, incarcerated persons must see a light, and the community at large needs to be heard for all of us to truly be safe and secure. We cannot see those who are incarcerated as entertainment to be watched on a Netflix reality TV series. So I ask for your support to bring the values of care, custody, and control to the sheriff's office and continue the new age of leadership and reform in our criminal justice system. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Christopher Williams.
Thank you all for allowing me to speak today, Power Coalition and the Urban League. My name is Dr. Christopher Williams. I'm a native of New Orleans, born and raised in the Ninth Ward and a proud alumni of the Orleans Parish school system. This great city is home for me. My mother raised my siblings and I believe it is one of the most unique cities in the world. Our culture, our heritage, and our people make it a very special place. And it's imperative that we keep it safe. And that's why I'm running for Orleans Parish Sheriff. I'm married with 4 kids. I have a PhD in higher education leadership, a master's degree in criminal justice, a BA in criminal justice, an AA degree in political science. I'm certified by FEMA as an emergency preparedness coordinator, and I have a knowledge management certification. And I also teach criminal justice courses at Dillard University and Southern University in Baton Rouge. My platform is centered around the 3R program. First R is to restore order to the Orleans Parish Sheriff Department by getting the decree finished. The second R is to reform the inmates training by ensuring that they get certifications to reduce the recidivism rate. And the third R is to reform the Orleans Parish Sheriff deputies so they can aid NOPD in fighting crime. I'm number 7 on the ballot, asking you for your support and prayers.
All right, thank you so much. And thank you all for those introductions. We are going to move into our questions for tonight. We have 7 questions. Each of you will have 1 minute to answer. I'm going to remind you again to please look out for that 15-second warning so we can stay respectful of everyone having the same amount of time to speak. So our first question, which many of you brought up in your introductions, is about your experience. Some of you, we know what you've been doing. Others we're not so familiar with. This is a chance for all of you to tell us both personally and professionally the experience you have and how it has impacted the vision that you will bring to the sheriff's office. So Quentin, I'm going to go back to you first.
Okay, they always pick at me because they already think I don't have the experience. But I'll tell you one thing, I have the experience in life. And I don't have these doctor's degrees. I don't have these PhDs. I don't have these ADs, whatever these degrees that they have. But you forgot to remember, you got to ask yourself, what about all these other people we elected that had all these degrees? And we still in the predicament that we in right now. I have a degree in knowing when a person, a family member goes to that jail, that they are taken care of. They have to know what medicine they have to take. And the caring of these people. And I know they got crime out here in New Orleans. And I know my sheriff that I want, that's why I'm running, because I know my sheriff is not out here trying to protect me. He's just worrying about the jail. I think the sheriff, the city council, the mayor, everybody, somebody is lacking in crime. Our crime is going up in this city and someone needs to do something about it. So let's get more deputies in the jail, get those ones that's been sitting on their butt for, I want to say another word, but sitting on their for 20 and 15 years waiting to get a retirement check and put them on the streets. And let's start getting some trained officers out here to ride side by side with these people. And let's get them out of Winn-Dixie and get them on the street. And get them out of Whitney Bank and get them out of Walgreens, and let's start getting them on the streets. We need to tackle this crime. There's nothing else to really discuss about what's need to be done. Crime is the main issue. Everyone goes to work at night or go home and come home. They want to be safe.
I'm going to ask you to pause until we get back to you for the next question. Thank you so much. Marlon, let's get to you with more on experience, please.
As I said earlier, my parents instilled in us a strong work ethic and the value of a good education. I've served my community as a public defender, as a lawyer. I was the chief administrative officer for the city of New Orleans, where I was responsible for all of the city departments. I was elected as the city councilman in District D, and now I've served as sheriff. I understand the criminal justice system, and I know how it works. I have the relationships and the competence to get it done. I've also served my community through my service on boards and commissions like the YMCA, Boys Town, the Sugar Bowl Committee, and others. I know that together we can make a difference, which is why I partnered with so many organizations and community members. I have the experience, I have the relationships, and I have the track record. I'm a hard worker, and I'm for.
All right, thank you so much. Janet Hayes.
Yeah, so it was Hurricane Katrina and the closure of Charity Hospital. It uncovered so much corruption. With this, I couldn't just ignore the injustices that were happening all around me. Knowing that I could help, my nature compelled me to start helping people get back on track. Since then, I've been an advocate and fighter for mental health services, reducing homelessness and unnecessary deaths. I've worked with and helped educate legislators to remove policy barriers in order to reduce incarceration, homelessness, reduce wasted spending, and senseless revolving doors for people living with serious mental illnesses and addictions. I've started a nationally recognized organization, Healing Minds NOLA. I began a specialty court under civil district court to help people with serious mental illnesses adhere to treatment so that they don't go off the rails and end up incarcerated. My first and foremost vision for sheriff's reform through safety, accountability, transparency. The reform starts with a clear vision. I understand how to get through those policy barriers and affect the type of policy changes that will change our current system of transient crisis care, moving in and out of ERs and hospitals, jails, shelters, and often unlicensed group homes. We need to end these revolving doors, or we're never going to get ourselves out of institutionalizing and criminalizing people with mental illnesses.
All right. Thank you very much, Janet. Let's get to Susan Hudson. Can you speak more about your experience and how that will impact your vision for the sheriff's office?
Yeah, thank you, Sheba. My decision to run for sheriff was a lifetime in the making. As a former prosecutor, former defense attorney, former assistant city attorney, and police monitor for the last 17 years, including at the Los Angeles Police Department, one of the largest in the country, which was also under consent decree, like the current sheriff is under, and at the NOPD, which is also under consent decree. I have seen the criminal justice system from many sides. But it was around 2014 or 15 that I really became awoke as to the inequities and injustice in our system. And it was also around that time I started finding out in my own personal life about my paternal grandfather being murdered by a sheriff in East Texas during Jim Crow. So it seemed like everything was just guiding me in this direction. Around 2019, I was elected president of the National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement, law enforcement, which is the only civilian oversight association in the country and includes many cities all around. That I became really looking at the bigger picture. And then along come Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and George Floyd. And after watching our communities get out in the streets and demand change in their system, I began looking at the bigger picture. And that led me to this point, this moment, to move from oversight, where I just make recommendations, to running for sheriff, where I will be in charge and I will make the decisions. And this could be a model of reform all around the country for care, custody, and control. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Christopher Williams, tell us more about your experience, please.
Well, my experience is centered around 32 years of law enforcement experience. I worked my way up from patrolman to sergeant to lieutenant to commander of the police academy, and I'm a two-time chief of police. I'm a member of the Chief of Police Association and Noble. I have reformed 2 police departments with favorable outcome, and I will do the same at Orleans Parish Sheriff Office. My vision is to remove the stigma from the Orleans Parish Consent Decree and restore order to the Orleans Parish Sheriff Department, reform prisoner training program to include certification and to reduce the recidivism rate as well, and to fight crime and to ensure that our deputies fight crime on the street with NOPD. Look, the 3 components of the criminal justice system is the police, the courts, and the corrections. The sheriff department cannot work in a vacuum. The criminal justice system is designed to work collectively and as a whole. It is my intent to bring them together on a monthly basis and solve our crime problems. I also teach criminal justice courses as well, and I retired from the federal government in law enforcement to run for this position.
All right. Thank you very much, Christopher. I'm going to remind you guys one more time to look out for that 15-second warning. So we're sticking to 1-minute answers as we move on to our next question. As I told you guys, we're covering topics important to both the Urban League and the Power Coalition. So many of you have already spoken about criminal justice reform tonight, but we'd like to have a question specifically regarding that to ask you, what is your vision for reform when it comes to the sheriff's office? So Quentin, I'll get back to you. What is your vision for reform?
My vision of reform is to really have an annual meeting, and like y'all teaching me how to do Zoom now, I want to do Zoom with the sheriff office. I want to have where that if the state wants to come in and audit me at any time, they can come in and see what is being spent every time. Something is not being done right, because if something was done right, he wouldn't have opponents running against him. Just like the mayor, he would go unopposed like he did last time. I wish I would have reigned that last race, but I don't know who this guy is. I'm still trying to find out. This guy didn't pay his taxes and got disqualified and really had to run for sheriff. I'm really trying to figure out that person. But reform is reforming the whole system and make sure that our deputies that's females don't be treated like candies and tossed around just because they're a woman, or just because an inmate come in and he's a killer, he's not being treated fairly. Everyone should be treated fairly into proving their innocence or guilty. That's what I should do. When you come into my system,
1 minute, Quentin.
When you come into my system, I'll treat you fairly.
Thank you,
I
Quentin.
don't care what color you are.
All right, thank you. Let's get back over to Marlon Guzman. Your vision for reform, changes for the office.
Criminal justice reform means a smaller and safer jail where we can help those in our custody become better than they were when they arrived. It includes both mental and physical. So we have to give good medical care as well as good mental care. It means that we should treat everyone in our custody with dignity and respect. It means that we should provide resources either directly or through partnerships to get them the help that they need. The Travis Hill School is an example. The Goodwill programs, the volunteer chaplains, University of New Orleans, the Metropolitan Human Services District. Those are some examples of how we're helping people become better. True reform is when we can help reduce recidivism by providing jobs for employment, like the Day Reporting Center, where we have an internship requirement that everyone has to go through to help them not go back to jail. The reentry program, where we had family nights, where we connected people with their families before they were released. And the transitional work program, probably the best one, where we hire people who are still incarcerated, give them the work ethic, give them a job. And most of the time, they keep that job. And we have to do it not just at the sheriff's office where I do it, but also with private employers. And if we can get the whole community understanding that yes, everybody makes mistakes, but we can help them become better. That's when we're going to have true criminal justice reform, when we help those in our custody become better.
All right, thank you, Marlon. Janet Hayes, your vision for reform for the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office.
Thanks, Sheba. So criminal justice reform means safety, accountability, transparency that breeds trust. Without trust on both sides of the spectrum, our community is lost. Criminal justice reform means that people in jail are treated like human beings, not like widgets. Through accountability, there is opportunity for job training, education, and treatment. This ensures that the rate of recidivism is reduced and that people are able to integrate back into their communities. This also starts at the front end, providing job training, education, and treatment for people before they're incarcerated, reducing entry and re-entry into jails. Criminal justice reform starts at the top. We need to hold the people at the top accountable for their actions. We need a sheriff like me who works tirelessly each and every day on the ground, addressing our fundamental safety challenges. When New Orleanians ask, is the sheriff really listening? We need a sheriff that can honestly say yes.
All right, Janet Hayes, thank you so much. Susan Hudson, can you share what criminal justice reform means to you?
Yeah, true reform is about having a more fair and equitable system of justice. So exerting that control to have a more fair and equitable system, and caring enough to reappropriate community resources to help marginalized communities and people, and not building more jails and jail facilities as this sheriff has done. This amazing city has voted to flip the bench, elect a progressive DA, ban most municipal arrests, and instead give summonses, limit the use of tear gas, and embrace the reforms of the NOPD's consent decree. So the next step in reforms is the sheriff. And reforms have not happened in the last 17 years, so they're not going to happen now. The sheriff has to work with other actors in the system to be more efficient, fair, and equitable. I will work with the judges and the DA to make the system more fair. I will make sure attorneys can see their clients in a timely manner. I will release people in a timely manner, which the sheriff has been sued for. And I will care for employees and incarcerated persons to limit the number of lawsuits that have been levied against the sheriff and the number of dollars that have had to be paid out of taxpayer funds. So a more fair and equitable justice system means we need a new sheriff. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Christopher Williams, can you please share your plans for reform if you are elected Sheriff of Orleans Parish?
Well, criminal justice reform to me is working to eradicate the number of prisoners and reduce the recidivism rate and ensure that the criminal justice system is impartial to all human beings in and out of the jail system. While no criminal justice system is entirely perfect, I think we should focus on prioritizing rehabilitation of offenders, especially juvenile offenders, and ensuring that the Orleans Parish Sheriff Deputy and NOPD fight crime together, and introduce a juvenile curfew violation task force. I really believe we can mitigate the culpability of prisoners returning to jail by providing them with meaningful trades to get jobs once they are released. Jobs such as electrical, plumbing, CDL license, elevator technician. According to the Southern Poverty Law Center, 2016, 44% of people released from prison returned within a 5-year period. Look, we all are affected by the criminal justice system. We must put a qualified subject matter expert in law enforcement management, like myself, in the sheriff department.
All right.
We're going to yield the same results.
All right. Thank you so much for responding. Quentin, I'm going to get back to you. We want to talk about transparency now. Talk about ways you would increase transparency in the sheriff's office. And I'm going to remind you again to look out for that 15-second warning to stop, please. Thank you.
All I can say is that if I'm elected sheriff and everything, and you know, people don't, these people, they're saying their questions and everything because they study their questions. I'm saying things as it comes to me because I'm saying it out of my heart, and I'm saying it what I would do. Now, transparency, I would just make sure that everything is run right in that jail cell. I'm tired of people getting killed. I'm tired of people getting hung, committing suicide. I'm tired of the police out there stopping people for unnecessary reasons, going ahead and just putting you in jail because you got a little weed, give them a fine, pay us some money, give us some money. Stop stopping people because they don't have a brake tag, or they don't have a license, or they don't have insurance. Give them a ticket, pay the money. Let's help pay for this jail. Give them fines, keep fining them and everything. I don't know what actually, I'm hearing what's going on in that jail, in that cell, but I just want to be in there so I can know. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to be straight up with you. I don't have all the experience that these people probably say they have, but I know that I will do my best as a community servant, and I'll hire every last one of them to help me, and I'll make sure your kin folks be protected.
Thank you, Clinton. All right, let's get to Marlon Guzman. How can you increase transparency in the sheriff's office?
Transparency is one of our core values. It's on the back of everyone's ID card. I've invited many people in our community to come and visit the jail. I've invited the press, and I've invited you, Sheba Turk, to come and visit the jail. They've come, those who have, and they've seen the transformation of what it used to be and what it is now. When I was elected, I pledged transparency. I presented a detailed budget to the city council, showing all of our sources of revenue and expenditures, and I continue to do so each and every year. We abandoned the per diem system where we were getting paid to house individuals and instituted a budget plan. We have an external CPA firm who audits our books and presents it to the Louisiana Legislative Auditor. We've held quarterly community meetings with the public. We publish the latest information on COVID, on our budget, and other items of interest on our website. So, look, we're transparent. We always are looking to be more transparent, and telling lies about my record is not going to get anyone elected.
All right, thank you very much, Marlon Guzman. Janet Hayes, your plans for increasing transparency if you're elected chair.
Thanks, Sheba. So I know that trust is what we're looking for in our elected officials. You want to be able to trust that the person you vote for will follow through on their word. The only way you can have this trust is through transparency. To ensure this trust, I commit to representing people and people alone, not politicians, not special interests. I'm an independent candidate with an independent voice. I won't spout off about the great things that I will do, then get elected and follow party lines. No, my leadership principles and everything I fight for are now things that I will do in office. I'm not afraid to show the vulnerabilities that have been shown in our jails. Without this openness, we will never know what needs to change and we'll never fix the problems. I promise that my door will always be open for you. I want to hear your voice. I want you to share your concerns. I want to work collaboratively with all of you and hear how I can make my community safer. If you want to know how I feel about transparency, come to any of the meetings that I facilitate that are always open to the public, because I feel strongly that we need grassroots efforts, grassroots planning. And though I've been shut out of other people's meetings, unless under a consent decree, I have not acted the same way. I've always been open.
1 minute, Janet. Thank you so much for that answer. Susan Hudson, let's talk about transparency. How would you increase transparency in the sheriff's office?
Well, number one, I'll do the exact same thing I did as police monitor for 11 years. I believe in accountability, transparency, and community leadership. And when I was chosen by this community to be police monitor in 2010, NLPD did not publish its statistics about shootings using force or complaints. I began publishing those statistics for them and even purchased a database to house the reports. And that database is still used to this day. Around the time of Michael Brown, Eric Garner, and Freddie Gray, when other cities were noting that they did not have accurate data about the number of times police kill community members or complaints are filed, our city did, because I made sure they did. As police monitor, I also insisted on releasing videos of encounters with the NLPD. In 2015, when I released a video of an officer hitting a teenager with metal restraints, that led to NLPD's policy on releasing body-worn camera footage after each major incident. And before I left the police monitor's office in June, I was working with our community and city council to create a public-facing database, not only of data, but also of details of cases, because you need context, not just data. And I will do the same for all aspects of the sheriff's performance. And you won't have to wait until there's a lawsuit or an article about a super secret contract to work with Netflix to let you know what is going on in your jail. Thank you.
All right, Christopher Williams, can you share with us your plans for transparency for the sheriff's office?
Well, I think transparency needs to start with trust. You have to get the community to trust you first, but most importantly, you have a website that you can pretty much put your policies on. These policies should include also your contracts. Make them available, and you can get the trust going with the public. Investigations of hearings that's going on actually within the sheriff department, and also body cameras. Why aren't the deputies wearing body cameras? They're just not for NOPD, but this is that the public can see them. We've had people expired in the jail system. No one came to their rescue. No one is monitoring them properly. But if we get these techniques in the inside, we'll make it published and we'll put it on the website.
All right, thank you very much for sharing that. Let's move on next to kind of what you just mentioned, Christopher, the people who are under the care of the Orleans Parish Prison. How will you ensure their safety, life, and dignity? Quentin, I'm gonna go back to you.
Well, like I said, if I'm elected for sheriff, like I said again, now I'll say it again and again and again. If a man hasn't discovered something that he would die for, he isn't fit to live. I have discovered to run for sheriff, and I have discovered to tell anyone that if I'm not in the runoff, Sheriff Guzman wins easy. I'm just putting it out just like that. I promise you, I'll give you my word. If I have to put a bed in that jail, in that prison, I'll do it. If I have to walk the cells, I'm not going to say 24 hours, I got to get some sleep. If I got to walk 18 hours a day to that jail cell to make sure everyone is all right, make sure the body cameras are on my deputies, make sure if I could see all the cameras of every jail, if everybody is in there, when you come into that jail, my life is on the line for you. Because if I lose a life in that prison, it's like I'm losing my own child in that prison, because I took an oath to protect you and to serve you. And I just don't want to do it in a jail cell. I want to do it on the streets too.
All right, thank you very much. Marlon Guzman, let's get back to you. How do you ensure the safety, life, and dignity of people who are in the jail?
The people in the jail, these are the sons, the daughters, the grandsons, the granddaughters, cousins, and friends of all of the people in my community. And we want them to have the best possible outcomes. We partnered with Tulane University to provide the best mental health care. The chairman of Tulane's psychiatric department is on our staff. We instituted a direct supervision, abandoned remote and intermittent supervision, where the deputy and the medical team work side by side on the housing unit. Now, we use body-worn cameras, and we all know what about body-worn cameras. You can't throw that away, you can't erase it. We use that to supplement the 900 cameras that we have in our facility already. In addition to that, we have incentive programs where we give positive encouragement to the people in our custody to encourage clean and safe housing units. We work hard, and direct supervision is a model where you have to interact with the persons in your care, custody, and control. And we work hard to make sure that they're happy, we understand them, and that we get a good outcome from them.
Thank you, Marlon. Janet Hayes, can you tell us more about how you would make sure you take care of the folks who are in Orleans Parish Prison?
Yes. Well, first of all, we need a thorough audit of our jail, pinpointing where the gaps are and then implementing policies to close those gaps. Historically, abuse and unnecessary deaths in institutions are almost always due to lack of resources and well-trained staff. Our jail needs reform, something that hasn't happened because our current politicians are too tied to maintaining the status quo. People with serious mental illnesses should be removed from the correction system altogether and put under the jurisdiction of the Louisiana Department of Health and Forensic Psychiatry. This reduction of the jail population increases the budget and enables our deputies to have better training and more pay. As sheriff, I will fight to make sure people in the jail, again, are treated like human beings, not like widgets, We can't kick them off a cliff when they're released. We need to help them take incremental steps for them to enter back into society. That takes money. Lastly, we need a sheriff that cares, who won't continue to enable bad behaviors from our prison staff and inmates. We need a sheriff who will advocate to help people who cannot help themselves. And I'll be that advocate for the people of New Orleans.
All right, thank you very much, Janet. Susan Hudson, I want to get back to you. How do you ensure the safety, life, and dignity of people who are under the care of the Orleans Parish Prison?
Okay, thank you. Well, the first thing you do is comply fully with the consent decree. Remember that the consent decree is a federal court order for change after this community and the Department of Justice sued the sheriff. And it was focused on ending the deaths and violence in the jail, as well as the improper medical and mental health care. But instead of complying with that consent decree and keeping people safe, including his own employees, the sheriff has continued to allow people to die. And he hired WellPath, which is a company that has been sued hundreds of times around the country for providing improper medical and mental health care. This inability to keep people safe has led to the sheriff losing control of the jail for 4 long years. It was taken from him by a federal judge. Now, he still received his whole salary, but didn't do his whole job. And the number of women employees who have been sexually harassed and assaulted at the jail is a crying shame. Now it is time to remove this jail permanently from the sheriff's control and comply with that consent decree as a minimum. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Christopher Williams, can you tell us how you would make sure you take care of the folks who are under the care of the Orleans Parish Prison?
Well, as a physical security subject matter expert, I would have to work on certain things simultaneously, such as complying with the consent decree. But most importantly, I would employ the latest technology in the jail, such as apparatus for breathing and motion monitoring activity that would alert monitoring stations, and put in a redundancy to the watch commander's office to ensure whenever they have someone that is not breathing, they will respond accordingly. Secondly, I would conduct a physical security survey to determine the vulnerability and weaknesses of the jail system, and ensure that we have trained emergency response team to render first aid and medical experts until medical experts arrive. I would also ensure that the CCTV system are operable and secure, and ensure that the ingress and egress points of entries are clearly monitored. 2017, Kobe Crawford OD'd on cocaine, and no one responded, nor was he monitored. That is unacceptable. We need to have apparatus that would alert them that someone is not breathing.
Thank you, Christopher. All right, our next question, of course, we just went through Hurricane Ida. We will see many more hurricanes and disasters in this state. And of course, we're still dealing with COVID-19. So our next question is, what would you do to improve how disasters and health issues are handled at Orleans Parish Prison? Quentin, I'm going to get back to you.
You must be doing this because I'm a gardener, huh? Yeah, it's okay, though. It's all good. What I would do is that if COVID-19 was to come around again, just like it is right here, I'll make sure every candidate, every prisoner make sure they're vaccinated and everything, and have a separate area if I have to quarantine something off to make sure that when they come in, everything is safe for them to come in and everything. And I just the safety when I'm elected is just the safety of the health beings of these people that come in here. They come in there to serve their time and to do what they're supposed to do until they get out. They're not coming in there to get killed or die or get harassed or a worker coming there to get harassment because she got a big butt or she looked good or she's pretty. Everyone should be treated fairly and everything. And then any kind of epidemic that come on, I'm damn near like the president getting ready to happen, because I'm getting people ready already. I'm getting computer person ready so I can have all my cameras set. I'm getting a person that's on my medical staff ready to get on ready. I have a job for every last one of these candidates if they want to come on aboard, if I can get this man in a runoff and beat this man. Like the doctor said, I have him on my side. I got Susan Hudson going to work, do mental health. I got Janet Hayes going to do the K-9 department.
Thank you, Quentin. All right, Marlon Guzman, I'm going to get over to you. Can you talk about the future of what you would like to see as far as the sheriff's office handling disasters and health issues in the prison?
Well, let me tell you what we've done. As for COVID, I partnered with Tulane University and began mass mandatory testing of all of our staff and inmates on April 14th, 2020. Now that's right a month after the outbreak happened. And with Ochsner Systems, we do it every 21 days. We're now on our 16th mass testing of staff, volunteers, contractors, and inmates. And the fact is that there's no other facility in this area doing mass testing. We instituted social distancing, constant cleaning, use of PPE, and video education. We quarantine everyone on arrival for 14 days. And in addition to all of that, I requested vaccine from the state Department of Health. And when the vaccine became available, I partnered with Ochsner Health Systems and made it mandatory for all staff, volunteers, and contractors. That was right after the vaccine came out. Now, we have vaccinated 790 of the persons in our custody. We continue to vaccinate more. And I've offered incentives to the inmates who took the vaccine and to encourage those who haven't taken it to take it. We're getting more vaccines this week, and we're continuing to do it. I hold a vaccine meeting every week. And look, just to tell you a little bit about how
that is one minute, though. I hate to cut you off, Marlon. That is 1 minute. I'm going to move on to Janet Hayes. Can you tell us how you would improve disasters and health issues at Orleans Parish Prison?
Yeah. So people who are locked in a facility don't have a choice if they're in contact with others. Under those circumstances, I will ensure that inmates and deputies are vaccinated or regularly tested following CDC guidelines and following PCP protocols. For natural disasters, I believe that the jail population should be treated the same as our citizens. I believe that they should have the right to the same safeties. It's clear that our jail isn't up to the task. We need to set up emergency and evacuation procedures that make sense and are reliable. Collaboration and communication need to be first and foremost. Preparing for the unexpected. The well-being of the jail population should not be an afterthought. The well-being of our jail population should be addressed by someone with experience, someone with an independent vision, passion for human health and dignity, and someone who has relationships with seasoned first responders and those with experience in disaster planning and response. I'm that person, and I'm committed to taking the necessary steps to getting our jail back on track.
Thank you very much, Janet. Susan Hudson, can you tell us your plans, what changes you would implement when it comes to the prison handling disasters and health issues?
Thank you. Well, first, I want to send out condolences and some love and support to all of those folks who have died, whether they worked at the jail or whether they were living and housed at the jail due to COVID. The first thing you have to do, and leadership is the key for care, custody, and control. You have to have a written game plan, which you show to your community, which is based on expert advice and the most up-to-date information about a particular disaster or a virus that you need to control. Everyone has to be trained. Everyone has to practice on what will occur so that they can carry out the game plan seamlessly when the inevitable disaster occurs, especially living in the Gulf Coast. Again, leadership is the key. And so you don't take people to Camp J, which is condemned, which was a condemned site. You find something more, you work with your fellow sheriffs in the Louisiana Sheriff's Association to work out a better plan to keep people safe. And you make sure that everyone knows what they're supposed to do. This is very clear and very important. And I call on the sheriff to release all information about the evacuation, where people went, what happened when they were there, were there uses of force, what occurred? Was anybody left behind there at Camp J? Were any people not being able to be found? Be transparent about all that.
Okay.
And then once the disaster is over, it's up to the sheriff to help the community recover and turn fully towards that. Thank you.
We appreciate it. Christopher Williams, I'd like you to weigh in here talking about disasters and health issues. What changes would you like to see as far as those being handled at the prison?
Well, as an emergency preparedness coordinator, I would have a well-updated emergency plan first that's vetted by the state of Louisiana Correction Board that addresses COVID-19 and natural and man-made disasters. My plan will include the devolution process that provide prisoners with the same living amenities. And most importantly, we would have a communication plan that is included in it, an emergency operations center, and an emergency population warning plan as well to ensure that we know how to communicate with the public and let the public know where we are going pre-operation and post-operations as it relates to emergency preparedness.
All right. Christopher Williams, thank you very much. Our next question is about the capacity for the jail. Do you envision a bigger jail, a smaller jail if you were elected sheriff? And would you add any new facilities? Quentin Brown, I'm going to get back to you, and I'm going to remind everyone to please start wrapping up your thoughts at 15 seconds so I don't have to cut you guys off in the middle of a sentence. Quentin?
Thank you very much, Against. Now, that's the first. Now I think you're taking it easy on me. Okay, what I think would happen. He got a phase 3 now, and he say it's going to be a mental institution. The way crime is going right now in New Orleans, believe me, you might need a 4th one. All I got to say, the money is allocated already for this. It has to stay. Stop protesting. Stop wasting your damn time trying to stop it, because it's not going to stop it. The man have did it already, and it's going to be done. So let's use it. Let's make it a child care. Let's put a child care center in there. These deputies are not getting paid right. I have talked to I'm not going to lie to you. I hit the streets every day of my time. I've talked to over 30,000 people in Louisiana, in New Orleans. Believe me, I write it down every time I talk to someone, or I hold my sign and someone sees my sign. If you just see my sign, you're on my card, and I talk to. The jail is fit right now the way it is right now. Let's just put it to work. Let's make a child care center. Let's make a rehabilitation center for jails inmates. When they come in, they learn something, just like the doctor said. That's why I want to put them on my team. We want to run a pipe fitting program, we can do that. You want a plumbing program, we can do that. You want a goddamn bowling alley lead, we can do that too. Let's do anything that we have to do to make this jail go right, and let's stop making the prisoners have to sit there and nobody mentioned how we gonna pay for all this. Tax dollars are paying for all this. Let's get something in that jail that will make it work for the city, and with that the prisoners can do some kind of structures in there where they can make some kind of money and pay back, because we paying for them to stay there. Let's pay them back. Not ask what your city can do for you. Ask what your damn inmates can do for you.
All right. Thank you, Quentin. Marlon Guzman, can you please talk about your plans for the future capacity of the jail and any new facilities you would still like to add?
Sure. First, Sheba, I get tired of the lies that people are throwing out here. No one in my care, custody, and control died from COVID. And we successfully evacuated and returned 835 inmates and released some of the inmates while they were still in custody up at Angola. Look, I pledged to have a safer, smaller, and more secure facility when I was elected. There were 7,540 beds, 13 different facilities. I've closed or torn down every single one of them. I did that. The special needs facility, which was approved by the court, agreed to by the city, has 89 beds, and it will allow us to give the best care to the mentally ill, to the medical needs. It'll provide visitation facility for families and a laundry facility. FEMA funding is already reserved for it. Now, I didn't repair or retrofit those old buildings after Katrina. That's why we have a modern direct supervision with 900 cameras that's well lit. After Hurricane Ida, this was the only building that was up and lit and operating. The same thinking that goes into not having this mental health and special needs building is the same idea that we ought to retrofit the municipal auditorium for City Hall. That's a bad idea. And retrofitting the Orleans Justice Center is a bad idea too. You know, we ought to be judged by how we handle and how we treat the least among us. The mentally ill are the least among us. Let's be judged how we treat them. Let's give them the best treatment that we can.
All right. Thank you very much, Marlon. Janet Hayes, can you tell us about your plans for the size of the jail and any new facilities you would add?
Yes, thank you. I really appreciate this question. So the current administration continues to focus on making more room to incarcerate more people. As sheriff, I will reduce the jail population in that any new facilities I build will solely be for special needs and not overseen by the correction system. As an advocate, I've championed investing in these services, and studies continue to show this investment to have a direct positive impact in reducing rearrests and reincarceration. Continuing to blame again Governor Jindal for defunding critical services is counterproductive. In the 8 years of his absence, we've done minimal to no new investment. And in Parish, special needs hospital under the East Louisiana Mental Health System, ELMS, and Tulane Department of Psychiatry automatically helps bring the jail into compliance. We now have a right-sized jail. The sheriff can even contract for meals, laundry, and security services, thereby bringing money into the jail for rehabilitative programming and to increase deputy pay. Legislation already exists to allow ELMS to operate a satellite hospital in New Orleans. Few people know about it because few people prioritize serious mental illness the way I do. People with serious mental illnesses have no fault brain diseases, and they shouldn't be punished for it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Susan Hudson, can you talk about the plans for capacity for the jail and any new facilities you would add?
Yeah, thank you, Sheba. We know that part of the issue is that the jail is one of the largest mental health facilities in the city. The jail is being used to house persons who are going through mental health crises and substance abuse issues. And that not only puts those people at risk, but it does not solve the crisis. We must look to ways to defer people away from the jail and into proper health channels to get the support they need. I already talked to you about the current providers in the jail and that the sheriff was sued about substandard care. But I will work with community experts, the courts, the DA's office, and the city health department to find better avenues for those suffering from mental health crisis and substance abuse issues, so they are not incarcerated for a health concern. And I'm against building phase 3, and we can repurpose those funds. FEMA knows this, and we need to repurpose those funds to rebuild the mental health facilities that have been removed, and we need to go further for better responses instead to mental health crisis instead of police, and better treatment instead of jail. Help, not handcuffs. The sheriff wants to keep building jails. Well, let's judge him on that work as he requested that we do. But if they build it, they will fill it. We can do better and we can care better. Thanks.
All right. Christopher Williams, your plans for the capacity for the jail and any new facilities you would add.
Well, Sheba, I would definitely go smaller as well. Everyone keep talking about, retrofitting phase 3, but the truth of the matter is it's already earmarked. My intent is to utilize some of that space as a training and education program so prisoners can receive their GED, high school diploma, electrical, plumbing, HVAC, elevator certification, so that we can reduce crime. Look, most criminals don't commit crime because they want to. They do it because they need to make money. And by providing them with certifications to make $40,000, $50,000 a year, it'll work.
All right. Christopher Williams, thank you very much. I told you all I would ask you 7 questions tonight. We're going to skip the last one just because of time, because I do want you all to have a minute each to give closing statements. So be prepared to do that in just a second. Before then, I would like to get your commitments. The Urban League and the Power Coalition would like these commitments from you all. It's a yes or no question, so please only give me a yes or a no. I'm going to go through each candidate to answer each question, then we'll move on to the second question. Yes or no. Quentin Brown, will you commit to working with the community and with advocacy groups if you are elected? Yes or no?
Yes.
Already knowing that, yes.
Perfect. Marlon Guzman, will you commit to
Yes.
working with the community? Perfect.
Yes.
Janet Hayes,
Yes.
Susan Hudson,
Yes.
and Christopher Williams.
Yes, yes.
All right, voters, if you're listening, you heard that, a commitment from all the candidates tonight to work with the community and advocacy groups if they're elected. Second question, will you commit to prioritizing and practicing racial equity throughout your term as sheriff if you are elected? Quentin Brown?
Yes.
Marlon Guzman?
Yes.
Janet Hayes? Janet?
I said yes.
Okay. Susan Hudson?
Yes.
Christopher Williams?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Before I let you all go, I am going to give you 1 minute. Again, please look for that 15-second warning to make closing statements. Quentin Brown, your closing statements, please.
I'm Quentin Brown. I'm number 3. I'm the independent candidate in the race. I didn't run for governor or mayor or sheriff or city council for nothing. I ran because I wanted to change. I'm a regular candidate. I'm just a regular person that's trying to change New Orleans. I could be sitting home watching 504 with Sheba Turk than sitting here watching y'all on this Zoom, trying to look at the doggone billboard and trying to see y'all on these little cameras. But I set myself out here to try to help you. Now, from what I'm looking on the internet, I see they said on July the 13th, 2020 at 3:12, New Orleans, new corona cases outbreak hits New Orleans jail at least 11 inmates and staff infected. And I think there was one woman that died of COVID-19. And I think the sheriff just said that no one was infected with it. So I don't know. I'm on the internet, and y'all can do the internet too. Y'all know more about the internet than I do. So I just want to say that the only way you can hold your elected official accountable if you elect the ass out of office. That's all I can say.
Very much, Quentin. You addressed Marlon Guzman. We're going to go to him for his closing statements.
Thank you, and thank the Power Coalition, and thank the Urban League, and thank you, Sheba Turk. I took the 8th largest prison system in the United States, a sprawling prison complex where more than half of the inmates were state sentence inmates, and transformed it into a modern direct supervision facility where each housing unit has a recreation yard, a laundry room, a visitation area, a day room, and a program room and group rooms on every housing unit. We have more than doubled the pay of the deputies working here and increased training. I've established reentry programs, a day reporting center, partnered with Goodwill, the Metro Human Services District, UNO, Girl Scouts, Delgado, and many more to provide programming for our residents. We're 97% compliant with the consent agreement. The Sheriff's Office was historically underfunded. We've now established a stable funding arrangement, which includes a dedicated millage for operating costs that I proposed to the voters and they approved. We partnered with the NOPD to assist them when their courts were closed after Hurricane Ida. We patrolled the NOP to arrest those who would prey on our community. We also sent out teams to help pick up the garbage. We must complete the special needs facility so that we can bring the best care to the least among us, the mentally and the medically ill, and provide for an expanded family visitation center and a laundry. I have the experience, the qualifications, and the vision to get this done. I ask for your vote on November 13th. Marlon Guzman, number 4. Thank you.
Thank you, Marlon. Janet Hayes, your closing statement, please.
Thank you. So again, we do not want a small or a large mental health jail. I'm a civil rights advocate, but we do not want an ideology in our sheriff's office that opposes therapeutic involuntary treatment for people with cognitive impairments, because that will continue to drive people with severe mental illnesses into homelessness, coffins, and jail. If you want help, not handcuffs, we need to be unhandcuffed to help. We also don't want a jail that needs to be under a consent decree due to poor management. Unconstitutional and inhumane practices harm our communities and our jail. We need jail reform. I'm the candidate that can provide the correct path forward. I know that it's the people of New Orleans that give so much to make their communities great, not politicians. New Orleans deserves a new sheriff that isn't beholden to political agendas or parties, someone who thinks independently and is ready to fight for change. I'm that candidate. My name is Janet Hayes, number 5 on the ballot, and I'd appreciate your vote.
All right. Thank you, Janet. Susan Hudson, your closing remarks, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Power Coalition. Thank you, Urban League, for the opportunity to participate. Thank you, Sheba, for moderating. Once again, my name is Susan Hudson. I'm number 6 on the ballot, and I'm running for sheriff on a platform of change. And I hope that you've been able tonight to learn more about my values, my plan of care, custody, and control, and my desire to lead the Sheriff's Office into a new age of leadership and reform. Let's make it clear, we have a choice to make on November 13th. Do we stick with the same tired leadership that will disrespect our deputies and incarcerated persons for the entertainment of others? No, we must do better, and we cannot wait any longer. I ask for your vote so that we can continue turning around our criminal justice system in this amazing city. Thank you.
Susan, thank you. And Christopher Williams, your closing remarks, please.
Well, thank you all again, and Sheba. Look, it's clear. I'm the only candidate here with law enforcement experience. I have a proven track record. Public servant, I served my country, the U.S. Army, for 31 years as a chief warrant officer, and I have extensive law enforcement background. It's time for us to stop playing career politician and select someone who has the law enforcement background to save lives, to reduce crime, and to bring our city up to standards. That individual is me. Vote number 7, Dr. Williams, on November 13th. God bless you.
All right, thank you very much, Christopher. Quentin Brown, Marlon Guzman, Janet Hayes, Susan Hudson, and Christopher Williams, thank you all so much for being a part of this forum tonight, for taking part and giving voters a chance to hear your visions if you are elected to the office of Orleans Parish Sheriff. I'm going to ask you to turn off your cameras and microphones and leave the webinar now. We appreciate you all for joining us. Guys, as I told you earlier in the evening, the Sheriff's Office race is only one half of our night. Now we are going to move on to the candidates for City Council District A. So that covers Carrollton, Holly Grove, Gerttown, City Park, the University area uptown, and parts of Mid-City. I'm going to ask those candidates to turn on their cameras and microphones. And I'm going to start with introduction. So you all will have 1 minute each for an opening statement. And thank you all for being with us tonight. Again, these are the candidates for City Council District A. We're going to begin with Joseph Joe Giarrusso III.
Well, good evening, Sheba. Good evening to everybody. Thank you for the invitation tonight. I certainly did not expect these to be the circumstances when I was initially asked to participate. And frankly, while we've been off camera, I've been answering emails about trash and other issues too. My candidacy last time was based on sort of a simple principle that what people care about is making sure that government works on the things that they care the most about. And that can range from public safety to making sure streets are safe, to making sure the basics are being done. And for the past, I would say 3 or 4 weeks, that's what we've been doing around the clock to try and make sure the people of District A are getting the best service that they possibly can. We held a meeting Friday and again today on trash. We're meeting tomorrow on energy. I'm having a meeting next week about the flooding that happened in Lakeview and in Holly Grove. We want to make sure that people here are getting what they deserve, what they need, and I want to continue making sure that I work hard for the people of District A. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Joe. And I should remind you guys, there will be a 15-second warning that you will see on the screen when it is time for you to wrap up. If you can do that for me, please, so I don't have to cut you guys off tonight. Amy Misko, are you with us? All right, I don't hear Amy. If she joins us later in the conversation, I will bring her in. Robert Bob Morrell, are you with us?
I sure am. Hey, Sheba. Thank you so much. And good evening, everybody.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Bob Morrell. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm running for City Council District A to put people first. You know, my priorities are housing justice, ecological justice and infrastructure, racial and economic justice, workers' rights, and flipping the budget. I've been a member of the working class my entire life. I've been selling my labor since I was 15 years old. My first job was as a janitor, actually. And now, over 20 years later, I'm a senior software developer leading projects across different industries. I'm also a dad, a cyclist, and a comedian. And I'm running because I want to make sure that my daughter and all kids across New Orleans can grow up in a city that's not overrun with garbage and flooding, but is habitable and prosperous. And with your support, I think we can make New Orleans a truly resilient city in the face of the climate crisis, putting an end to the housing crisis, but most of all, putting people first. Thank you.
All right, Bob, thank you very much. We have two sets of questions for you guys tonight. For this first set of questions, we just want a quick 30-second response, so please keep them short. Joe, I'm going to begin with you. What do you love most about your district?
Love the people. They're fantastic and they're engaged. You cannot bluff your way through this district from top to bottom and use bromides or cliches. They expect answers and they want results. And it doesn't matter whether you're in Dixon, DeSay, Uptown, Mid-City. People want to make sure that they are engaged with their council member, that they have a relationship with them, and that you are staying engaged with them too.
All right. And Bob, same question for you. What do you love most about your district?
Well, there's so much to love about District A, but for me, I love our parks and green spaces. District A has the largest public park in the city and so many other wonderful parks and playgrounds. And as a cyclist, I love the new separated bike path down Marconi under the shade of the trees at City Park, or Lafitte Greenway being one of the fastest routes across the city. I've had a lot of great memories across District A from my childhood, from college, starting a family, and I'm looking forward to all the memories to come.
All right. Thank you very much, Bob. Joe, back to you. What do you think are the most important functions of a council person?
Well, I think there's sort of two. There's the legal functions, right? We got to make sure we get the zoning right. We have to pass the appropriate laws. We have to make sure we're appropriating the budget in an appropriate way, and obviously use the bully pulpit as best as we possibly can. But I think the other function is remembering we're a mouthpiece for the people that we serve. So if you see us at council meetings or other places wagging our fingers or getting irritated or expressing our concern, it's because that's what we're supposed to do, be the functionary for the people we're serving.
All right. And then Bob, what do you think are the most important functions of a council person?
Well, I think the most critical function is the city budget. The council is responsible for where the city spends its money. Now, budgets are a moral document. Do we spend most of it putting people behind bars? Or should we spend that money more to eliminate homelessness or traffic fatalities or childhood poverty? This is a policy choice. And that to me is the most critical function, the power of the purse.
All right. Joe, how do you engage with the residents of your district, and how would you continue to do so?
Yeah, I asked my staff to sort of quantify this because I think people are amazed about what we do. I've attended over 440 neighborhood meetings at this point, and according to the city's IT department, I've gotten over 187,000 emails either sent or received. Now, of course, that doesn't include going to committee meetings, the telephone calls, the pre-meetings that you need to have. And I think it's important to understand that you have to meet people across different ways. Sometimes it's in person, sometimes it's by Zoom, sometimes you can get it done by email, sometimes it's in the chambers, but it's making sure that you engage people as much as possible.
And Bob, how would you engage folks in your district?
Well, I would create a constituent portal that streamlines communication and information. Handling thousands of emails and phone calls and social media posts by hand is so 2017. We can streamline this process into a portal that allows for issue tracking so that people know what's going on and can hold me accountable. And moreover, I want to create a participatory budget where people can propose line items in the budget and decide where the city's money should go.
All right. And Joe, what do you see as the greatest assets of your district?
Well, I'm going to cheat a little bit and go back to number one and say the people again, because I really do think they make it. But I think Bob alluded to sort of the natural geography that we have too. We have parks, whether they're City Park or Audubon Park, and then we have great Nord parks too. Harrell and other places, Gurn Brown, that people use all of the time. We have the lake as well, which is a place that's going to start growing. So Greenway has been alluded to. So the fact that we have so much infrastructure here built already in natural green space in addition to all the people makes it a wonderful place to live.
Bob, what do you see as the greatest assets of District A?
I think about our wonderful and amazing and incredible workforce. Bartenders, musicians, nurses, and clinicians. Whether you're driving a bus or teaching or cooking food, if you work at the zoo or City Park or the Children's Museum, there are so many opportunities to contribute to people's lives in meaningful and fun ways. The workers around here deserve a lot more, but we give it our all, and we know how magical New Orleans can be, and that's because of the workers.
All right. Thank you guys for answering those questions quickly. That was our quick round. We're going to move now into 7 questions that we'll try to get through. It's only 2 of you now, so we should make it through. I'm going to give you guys a minute and a half to respond, but again, it's only you two, so I'm going to try to let you finish your thoughts. Please not to go too far beyond that minute and a half. Our first question, Joe, what specific things have you done in your district that shows you can positively impact your area?
Well, I think, again, there's two parts to this for me. Number one is I came up through working in the community and the neighborhoods. And I think that's incredibly important. You know, when I was on the Young Leadership Council, I made it important to ensure that we had some diversity as part of that organization because it was lacking and made it part of the requirements. At the same time, I was also the president of our neighborhood association and wanted to make sure that we had a good place to live and also could be a conduit to the council member at the time about what was going on. Specifically, since I've been a council member, I wanted to point out just a few things that really don't make the news, but I think are incredibly important. In Holly Grove, Dixon, we had a place that was literally, you could go in there and buy drugs and everybody knew it. And for years, the residents had struggled to shut it down. And we worked with all of the necessary agencies to make sure that that place has gotten shut down. And if you talk to the neighbors there, they will tell you that that has made a huge impact on where they live and how important it was. And it can be other things like demolishing the old fast food restaurant on Earhart and Monroe. We made sure that that got rid of. So that is also going to be part of the place where we have more and new affordable housing. And of course, as we continue to evolve, how can we do as much as our communities as possible? In Holly Grove, we made sure that there was a place for people to get vaccines. And as we've been working, obviously, throughout the storm, making sure that we've helped either stand up or partner with people to provide food and other resources at the seminary on Carrollton, at the park where we had the big giveaway, and then also working with Representative Freeman and Leonidas.
All right, thank you, Joe. Bob, I'm going to ask the same question to you. What specific things have you done in your district that show you can have a positive impact on your area?
Well, it makes me feel very small saying this, but picking up trash around my neighborhood, and now with all the lack of garbage collection by Metro, it seems that maybe it's a little bit bigger impact than I thought originally. You know, each and every one of us is capable of impacting positive change in our neighborhood and our city with just small, simple acts. You know, I love it when I'm out picking up garbage and someone stops to say that they're going to start bringing a grocery bag with them so that when they go on their walk, they'll pick up some litter. You know, these small acts can have major cascading impacts, whether we're removing litter from our storm drains, we're reducing pests, and even removing choking hazards for dogs. You know, individualism is starting to tear the city apart, right? And we need to start finding ways to come together as a community in all facets. So we get out what we put in. And if we want our city to be a great place to live and raise families, we need to start putting in the work wherever and however we can.
All right. And then the great thing is a council person actually lives in the district that they represent. So let's talk about both of your experiences as a resident, as just living in your districts. What about that experience shapes your vision as a council person? Joe?
Well, I think the biggest one has to be Katrina. You know, I can't think of anything larger than that became such a seminal shaping event for all of us, from not only seeing what happens when the federal government doesn't meet its obligations to the people it owes, but also looking and rebuilding side by side with people and the importance of building a community together. I think so many people get disaffected with government because they feel like it either doesn't serve them or they're not a part of it. And it almost takes these seminal events to sort of bind us back together and remember that we're more than a city, we're a community at the same time. And not only are we the city of New Orleans, but as you pointed out, Sheba, when you represent a district, you have a subset of that. And so what are the lessons that we can take as a result? And I will say right now, one of the things I've been pushing very much for, in addition to just picking up the trash around the city, is making sure that hurricane debris is picked up almost as quickly. I think for two reasons. Number one, obviously the health and safety reasons that everybody's seeing, but I think the second one is the psychological effect it has on people too. I can't imagine, and it breaks my heart to see what's happened, what it's like to walk out on day 27, day 28, and continue to see that in front of your house. So making sure that we have those lessons learned and how we've grown and how we can continue to grow as a result of the outcomes that we've experienced together.
And Bob, you live in District A. Tell us how your view as a resident is going to shape your role if you're elected to the city council.
Thank you. Well, unlike all the other candidates, I don't own property. I'm a renter. I'm a worker who pays bills by selling my labor. I don't have a driver provided for me. I'm a cyclist and I use public transit. And I know what it's like getting laid off, living paycheck to paycheck, raising a young child during a pandemic. You know, as a member of the working class, I experience the struggles that so many of us are feeling that's not felt by the ruling class of New Orleans. You know, a lot of people are struggling, a lot more are suffering, and it's all avoidable if we start prioritizing care over harm. So if we want a city council to start caring about the struggles that we're facing, then we need to start electing people that experience those same struggles. And that's why my platform is rooted in justice, because we live in an unjust city. And now more than ever, we need city council to act on behalf of people rather than profits.
All right. And of course, the Urban League does an amazing job supporting and coaching small businesses in our region. Tell us how you all, as council members, would support the small businesses in your district. Joe?
Well, I think there's a couple of different ways. Number one is the city does have Department of Office Community Development, also engagement with the economic development. So making sure that small businesses have an easier time trying to get through the system is incredibly important. And honestly, one of the things that we spend a lot of time on with businesses is not so much the run-of-the-mill issues that we have with residents. It's about process. How do we make that process easier for people? If you have a big business, it's very easy because either you've done it before, you have the means to do it. But if you're smaller, you have more problems. And I know it may sound somewhat insignificant, but when you have a business calling you and saying, we are ready to open, but we can't get our energy meter or sewage and water board meter, being able to pick up the phone and helping to facilitate that so businesses can open faster is incredibly important. And sometimes, even though we don't control the departments, it can be another easy thing of the last thing we need is our signage and getting that up and making sure that people know that we're here and making sure that we are helping with that as well. But at the same time, what we can do, I think, as an additional resource when businesses not only need us, but they're looking to grow, and what they can make sure that they know from a council office, we can help them facilitate, whether it's working with the city or some other organization, to make sure that they're growing the right way.
And Bob, what's your plan for how you would support small business owners?
Well, I think it starts with making sure that we remember that small business owners are part of the community and they shouldn't be treated any differently from, you know, residents, homeowners, students, or workers. So as city council member, I would absolutely advocate for them just as I would advocate for all the other constituents as well. I believe we should expand the neighborhood participation plan, which is currently one of the few democratically driven processes in where the prospective businesses interact with the residents, so that we're making sure that resident needs are met, while at the same time making sure that these small businesses are set up to succeed and help their community. Now, I will be there to support small business owners the same way I'll support all stakeholders in District A. And I would work with OBES to ensure that employers are being supported and set up in a position to succeed.
All right, wonderful. Before we get to our next question, I do want to remind you guys, you have a lot more time now since we don't have the other candidates. So we're going to stop giving you the time cues. You can just answer as you wish. The Urban League and the Power Coalition advocate for fairness and equity, of course, every day. So I want you guys to speak as a council person. How would you fight for fairness and equity specifically, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, so much of it comes down to breaking down barriers and making sure that people have access to things they wouldn't ordinarily do. I'll give you a few examples from what we've tried to do to make that a little bit better. When you have zoning matters, sometimes you need something called a conditional use, which means it's allowed, but you need the council to approve it. The fees for making sure that you could reestablish multi-established family homes were way too high and out of whack with what they needed to do. So what do? We lower those to make them at a point where people could have that entry at a much easier level, rather than keeping those fees at an exorbitant space. The other thing Bob alluded to, the neighborhood participation program, during COVID, that really got knocked on the chin. And for a long time, the City Planning Commission was saying that we didn't need to have NPP meetings whatsoever. Well, that really drives neighbors out of conversations, number one, which is critically important. And then number two, all they had to do was funnel potentially emails to one source. So people didn't get to see what was going on. And I passed a motion unanimously with my colleagues saying that during the height of COVID, during emergencies, that people should either have access to Zoom like we're doing tonight, or at a minimum, a telephone to make sure that they can participate in making sure that the zoning decisions that surround them. You know, another thing is people were losing their rights to challenge their ability to fight new construction, renovations, and demolitions next to them. We made sure that the city started providing people those adequate notices that they need. So to me, it's about what you need to do to make government easier for people to use, to break down those barriers for people to use. And I think, Sheba, one of the things we're seeing right now that we need to get a much better handle on is I have people who are more affluent saying, I've hired a private contractor to pick up my trash, or I'm moving it myself to Elysian Fields. Well, there are a lot of people who don't have cars. There are a lot of people who can't pay somebody else to do these things. And so when it comes to our basic services, we have to ensure that they are working well and working equitably for everybody.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Bob, I'm going to turn it over to you. Remember, take as much time as you need. Talk about how you would fight for fairness and equity.
Well, I would start by ensuring that our staff reflects the diversity of our district. It's kind of embarrassing that District A is the only city council office without a Black staffer. I'm the only candidate in District A that's prioritizing racial justice, and having an inclusive staff is imperative to preventing bias and promoting a healthy and fair democracy. I'll also ensure that the authority of my office will always account for equity and fairness in the pursuit of justice. I will fight for protection of marginalized communities, whether we're talking about the discrimination against LGBTQ workers or renters, whether we're talking about closing the wage gap along racial and gender lines, or reversing exclusionary zoning that has been impacting Black communities disproportionately. Even when we talk about minor things like Confederate street names, I would not support things like segregating streets along racial divides when we're talking about Lakeview and Gentilly. It comes from a mindset of equality and justice, and I feel that that permeates through me in every dimension. And for me, I find it to be kind of at the core of my values.
All right, Bob, thank you very much. Our next question is about workers' rights and fair wages, which are, of course, priorities of the Power Coalition and the Urban League. So I want to ask you guys, do you support a living wage and other policies that center people and workers' rights, such as a $15 minimum wage increase? Joe?
The answer is yes, and I said yes 4 years ago. So this has been an easy ask as far as I'm concerned. I know it took us longer to get there, but as a council member, we've already voted on two things to start implementing that. Number one, for our contractors, phasing that in over 2 years, and I'll come back to that in a second because I think we have more work to do in some of our departments to make sure that we're meeting the labor needs as best as possible by paying people. And then two, we prompted a study for those people inside City Hall who are paying less than $15 an hour and making sure we right-size that, and we're waiting on the administration to get back to us. So there is no doubt that when you look at the city of New Orleans, people have a hard time achieving what they want to because their salaries are so much lower than everybody else. Now, I will say this as a point of reference, District A is an outlier. A few years ago, the median salary in New Orleans was for a family was about $33,000 or $34,000, and District A was $52,000. So it is important for, I think, for anybody who has the seat to continue to remember that even though that we don't necessarily reflect what the rest of the city is, that we make sure that people are being paid a wage that they deserve. And candidly, I think when you've watched the meetings that have happened on sanitation within the last few days, the questions you keep hearing over and over again are about paying people to do a job that's incredibly hard. Whether you're a fire person or whether you're on the back of a garbage truck, it is hard work, and particularly right now. So one of the things I'm dedicated to try and work on is making sure that if we want to get the best labor possible to do it, we have to pay people the right way. And that's what I've been supporting for the last 4 years and my time on the council too.
All right, thank you, Joe. Bob, do you support a living wage and other policies that center people and workers' rights, such as a $15 minimum wage increase?
Absolutely, yes. And I'm the only candidate in this race who prioritizes workers' rights. You know, when the Hoppers first went on strike against Metro, Councilmember Geruso, as chair of Public Works and Sanitation, didn't intercede. Jimmy Woods, who's the owner of Metro and a max contributor to Councilmember Geruso's campaign, when he broke the Hoppers strike with prison labor, That's when drivers at Metro started to quit. And now Metro claims that they have a driver shortage that resulted in these piles of garbage that we have now. So it's clearly centered on a labor dispute. And we really need to have that leadership within city council that stands up for workers' rights. You know, Metro collects your money, but it doesn't collect your trash. That's not right. And it wasn't until we started to have these mounds of garbage that Councilmember Druso decided to intercede. But even now, we still have more questions than answers as to how can be prevented in the future. But more importantly, how do we make sure that we're taking care of these workers? You know, I'm the only candidate in this race that's a member of the working class, and I will use my office to champion workers' rights because the city does not function without the workers. I will be advocating for closing the subcontractor loophole for the $15 minimum wage. I would actually move to increase the minimum wage for city work to $25 an hour by 2025. And I would further advocate for city workers to unionize.
All right, thank you very much, Bob. The New Orleans City Council is, of course, the regulatory body for Entergy New Orleans. And there are concerns in the community that people will see higher bills in the wake of disasters like the one we just had, Hurricane Ida. How do you make sure that residents in your district are not paying more for issues that Entergy deals with? Joe?
Yeah, I think there's a few different ways that we're looking at tackling this. So number one of the things the council did before I got there was create a storm fund. And I think at the last accounting, there was at least over $30 million in there. Now, how much has been spent on Zeta, I don't have an answer to, but obviously using that to offset the costs of what happened as a result of Ida would be incredibly important. Number two, much like Katrina, one of the things that I think we've seen a big commitment from the federal government, whether it's from the White House or from our legislators, is federal money being able to be used to offset a number of those costs. You're hearing much more in a bipartisan manner, people talking about hardening the system, having more resiliency, bearing the lines, et cetera. Obviously, some of that is making sure that we have the requisite money from the federal government to doing that. I know the ARP question is next, so I'll preview that. Making sure that we're spending our money in the right way for people is incredibly important. And then, you know, I think the other piece, of course, is we're having a long docket tomorrow. Obviously, we're testing what happened, and one of the questions we have is whose culpability is here in play. And until we have all of those answers, much like we're looking at what happened with Mardi Gras when the power is gone, we may have some other means to call all this down. So I think the number one priority is making sure that people's bills aren't going up and that we use all available buckets to solve the problem.
All right, thank you. Bob, what is your plan to make sure that Entergy does not pass its costs on to your residents?
Well, I would work to becoming a proactive regulator and putting people before Entergy's profits. You know, even before Hurricane Ida, Entergy was struggling with fair weather blackouts and has not made any progress whatsoever in maintaining a sufficient grid. You know, part of our housing crisis is due to the burden that renters have paying these exorbitant Entergy bills. In fact, there are some residents that pay 28% of their monthly income just to keep the lights on. That's absurd. And yet time and time again, this city council has voted to give Entergy more of your money by increasing your bills, approving a $650 million power plant that did not black start in spite of the fact of what they told us. And just recently, Councilmember Druso championed this, a $70 million substation for Sewage and Water Board that would not have worked during Ida due to the transmission lines failing. Now, I've noticed online and from the conversations I've had with people across the district that they would like to pursue a public option for our energy grid, and I would certainly pursue municipalization. When public services are run for profit, we get left in the dark. And quite honestly, we can't afford Entergy's greed any longer.
All right. Thank you very much, Bob. Our next question is, Joe, as you mentioned about the Federal American Rescue Plan, which New Orleans will be receiving $100 million from that American Rescue Plan funding. What do you guys think is the best use of these funds to promote recovery from Ida and recovery that's equitable and fair for everyone? Joe?
Well, it's a great question. I think this is a time for us to be reflective about a vision that we want for our city. We have, remember, $2.4 billion to help with the streets. We passed $500 million on a bond issuance to work on the streets. And now we have $368 million from the ARP, and we're going to probably get more money as a result of the infrastructure bill and as a result of what happened with Ida as well. This is a moment for us to really take a step back and think about a couple of things. Number one, how do we make sure that people locally are part of this process? One of the things I continuously say as we talk about making sure that we're growing businesses and we have DBE participation is not only that you have somebody at the table, but that the number of chairs are added to that table. And how do we ensure that as businesses are growing, that they get moved in the right way so that the pie is growing for everybody? I think that's incredibly important, particularly when you're not talking about millions of dollars, but billions of dollars to make sure that we're growing back our city in the right way. And then obviously, as I've alluded to, that money can be spent in a number of different ways, but we need to make sure that we have the right strategic vision. And we know that we can use this money on making sure we have better green infrastructure, so we're not reliant on sewage and water board for all of our needs. I know this may sound like a pie in the sky idea, but after Katrina, there was $1 billion plan from the Corps of Engineers to retire a couple of the pumping stations and just let water naturally take its flow into the lake. Well, obviously, we can't afford all of that. But if you are working with the federal government and the state legislature and Jefferson Parish and ourselves, then you have an opportunity to make things like that happen. And as you're growing back stronger, making sure that we have a city that has the needs that are going to be important for everybody. If we know, for example, that the federal government is going to give us money or provide additional internet services for people who don't have necessary means to get it right now, then how are we using those resources in another way for people who don't need them? I actually view this as an incredible opportunity for us to grow our city, to grow our economy, but to grow our people in a way that we haven't done before.
All right. And Bob, again, New Orleans is receiving over $100 million in federal American Rescue Plan funding. How would you use these funds to promote recovery from Ida?
Well, the only way to recover our economy and our city is to make sure poor and working class people of the city are being taken care of. I believe in direct democracy, and I think that people should have a voice in where this goes. And again, proposing a participatory budget, I believe, will get us there. You know, the mayor's office has not released a spending plan, and city council's not begun to budget out this money. So now would be the opportune time to thoroughly ask the people where they need recovery the most and to get them engaged in the process. When I ask people candidly, you know, where they would spend it, they talk about critical public health and safety, you know, paying our sanitation workers, paying our firefighters and EMS, expanding health clinics, expanding food programs, internet for all children. But I think where people are hurting the most is dealing with rent and utility bills. So I think we should be spending a sizable portion of ARP money towards just helping out everyday people with their bills and back rent. I mean, we're talking about not just renters, but also landlords as well. And I really do think that the federal spending that's been occurring is starting to lift a lot of people out of poverty. And I would really like to see the municipal spending also work towards lifting people out of poverty.
All right, amazing. Thank you guys for answering all of the questions tonight. I'm going to give you time now to make closing statements. Joe Giarrusso, I'll start with you.
Well, thank you. You know, look, I know that we are going through a trying time right now, but I think one of the things that's important is to look at not only what we've said, but what we've done. Remember, when we talk about the power to appropriate the budget, that it's a real thing and how important it is to make sure that we're doing it correctly. Just a couple of years ago, remember that almost all the cities, 60-70% of it, was raised in their assessments. And so as that happened, we were faced with the question of whether or not we want to roll those millages all the way forward. And that would have added about a $16 or $17 million additional burden had we done that. Under my plan, we made sure that we did not renew or push all of those millages all the way forward, not only saving $16 million every single year, but it saves over $64 million over a 4-year period. That's money that people can use in a different way that isn't going into the coffers of government to do things that aren't necessary. As I've said earlier, my focus will remain the same. It's making sure that people have access and engagement to me. You know, I think the word that's been used so much when I've been campaigning is one of responsiveness. And I appreciate that, because I think when you're a district council member, you may not be able to solve all of the problems. You certainly don't control all of the departments, but you can get back to people and try and get them the best answers that they need. And when I talk to people, it doesn't matter where they are. There is definitely some parochialism depending on neighborhoods and depending on what the issues may be of the moment. But people care about making sure they have a safe city to live in. They care about making sure they have streets they can drive down. They obviously care about making sure their trash is being picked up, and they care about making sure that they have the economic ability to live in the city and to prosper.
Bob,
Thank you, and ask for your vote.
thank you. Bob Morrell, your closing statements, please.
Thank you so much. This November, we have a choice, a continuation of the last 4 years of leadership or change towards sustainability and justice. And what I lack in faith in our current leadership, I make up for in hope of what our city can become. Not a return to the status quo, but moving towards an equitable city for all of us. We need an economy and a government that prioritizes people over profits, whether we're talking about your energy bills, COVID restrictions, short-term rentals, or even your garbage. People around New Orleans are tired of the same names on the ballot while the gap between the haves and the have-nots continues to grow. I refuse money from oil and gas, real estate developers, and city contractors because I'm not beholden to moneyed interests. I'm beholden to you, the people. Now, there's a clear choice for progress in District A, and I think it's number 39 on the ballot. So I'm Bob Morrell. You can visit my website at bob4districta.com for my platform, and have a great evening. Stay safe.
All right, Joe DeRusso and Bob Morrell, thank you so much for taking part in tonight's forum and giving voters a chance to hear your vision if you are elected the candidate for District A, council member for District A. Thank you, guys. All right, guys, and thank you everyone for listening in to tonight's forum. To learn more about the candidates for Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office and City Council District A, of course, the Urban League and Power Coalition will have more of these forums to make sure that you are ready for the November elections. That will be November 13th, and then the runoffs on December 11th. So I'm going to send it back over to Miss Judy now.
Thank you so much, Sheba. You did a fantastic job as moderator, and I want to thank all of the candidates for Orleans Parish Sheriff and Council District A. Thank you so much for spending time with us this evening and sharing your vision for the future of the city of New Orleans. It is my pleasure now to turn it over to Ashley Shelton, the dynamic founder, president, and CEO of the Power Coalition, who will give our closing remarks for the evening. Ashley?
Good evening. I don't think I have the ability to turn my camera on, so if somebody could do that for me, that'd be perfect. Oh, there we go. Start my video. Ah, there I am. Good evening. And I want to also give my thanks to the candidates for their responses tonight. And just remind all of you that, every election is important. And, these forums give us an opportunity to understand where candidates are coming from, where they are on the issues that we care about. And I think also too, that, we all have more work to do to better understand, where candidates are on many of the things that are important to us in this moment. And so please, continue to do your research, continue to dig and understand who will be representing you. Because I think that the one thing that we've learned from both COVID and these, continued disasters is that elected officials are determining our quality of life. And so it's so critical that you participate in every election. Again, a big appreciation to the Urban League for creating the space for tonight. As they have on the screen, early voting will be October 30th through November 6th. Election day is November 13th. We were really proud to work with the governor's office and the Secretary of State to move that from the original date of October 9th, given all that we've been through with Hurricane Ida. And it's going to be really important for folks to take advantage of that early voting window, given that some of the polling locations may move. And so one of the things that we also are asking folks to get engaged in is redistricting. And so following these elections, in November 13th, and then the general on December 11th, we will be engaging in redistricting. And so the legislature will gather and they will redistrict the state of Louisiana. They will determine what House district you live in, as well as what Senate district you live in. And so as we think about what it means to draw these lines based on the census, we know that our state is blacker and browner than it's been. We know that we need to really understand where and how folks can elect candidates of choice and whether or not we have the power to actually do that. We encourage you guys to get involved in the redistricting process because that's how you actually have voice and power. And this is the Louisiana legislature is going to be doing a roadshow throughout October through the end of January. And so we invite you to get involved, and we are talking about get out the comment, make your comments, work with the Power Coalition to draw maps. We have access to a series of different tools, Dave's redistricting map and others that you can access to be able to learn how to draw maps. We're also offering redistricting academies so that you can also learn how to draw maps. We are working with a world-renowned demographer who has defended maps in front of the United States Supreme Court, and he is here and on staff to provide support to citizens across the state of Louisiana as we try to draw maps that reflect the communities of interest in the ways in which we want to engage. And so, please also understand too that, redistricting is also happening at the local level across the state as well. And, many times, I talk to my friends at the Bunny Friend Neighborhood Association, and they talk about how, one neighbor lives in one district and the other neighbor lives in another. And so it really is important that we have these conversations because it also changes how you advocate, how you advocate and how you have voice for your community. And if your community gets divided through redistricting, then it lessens the power you have when you're trying to organize and advocate for change. And so we just ask all of you to engage. We're trying to make it as easy and accessible as possible. You can go to our website at powercoalition.org. Again, we'll be having another Crowd Academy before the end of the year and another one in January before we begin the process in February. So again, Power Coalition is so excited to be with you guys tonight, and appreciate the Urban League for partnering with us in this space, and appreciate the candidates for showing up. And so thank you.